When we discuss unidentified aerial phenomena, the conversation is often dominated by blurry photographs, secondhand accounts, and conjecture. But there are rare moments where the evidence is overwhelming, the witnesses are highly trained military professionals, and the subsequent official documentation leaves absolutely no room for doubt. The case we're looking at tonight is one such incident and arguably the most corroborated UAP confrontation in modern history. The Tehran UFO incident of September 19, 1976. This event involves multiple confirmed sightings by air traffic controllers and civilians, a high-speed pursuit by two advanced fighter jets, and, most disturbingly, simultaneous electronic and weapon system failures on both aircraft upon attempted engagement. The information for this entire event comes from a 4-page declassified Defense Intelligence Agency report. Tonight, we look at why this case remains the benchmark for intelligent non-terrestrial engagement with military forces. Only on this episode of The Weekly Strange. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Weekly Strange. I'm your host, John F. Mers, author, actor, adventurer. The clock had just passed 12:30 a.m. on September 19th, 1976, in Tehran, Iran. The city, then under the rule of the Shah, was relying on one of the most advanced air forces in the region, the Imperial Iranian Air Force, trained and equipped by the United States. It's important to remember this event takes place before the fall of the Shah and the current Islamic Republic of Iran was established, so our relationship back then was much better than it is today. The initial reports did not come from a secluded farmhouse or a lonely highway out somewhere. They came directly into the Mehrabad International Airport's control tower. Several callers reported seeing a single, extremely bright object hovering prominently in the northern sky near the Shemaran area. Air traffic control initially dismissed the calls as perhaps stellar objects or atmospheric phenomenon. However, the tower chief, noticing the persistent nature of the calls, finally looked up and saw the object himself. His description was specific. It was intensely bright, much larger than any visible star or airplane, and was hanging stationary. A commercial airliner preparing for approach confirmed the sighting, stating the object was clearly visible and easily trackable, confirming its presence at high altitude. At approximately 1:30 a.m., after the object had been observed by multiple ground personnel for almost an hour, the decision was made to scramble military assets. General Yousafi, the commanding general of the IIAF, authorized the deployment of the first interceptor, an F-4 Phantom II jet from the Shah-Roki Air Force Base. The deployment, documented in the DIA report, was done because the UAP was being treated as a genuine threat. This was a professional military response to an undeniable, unconventional aerial phenomenon over the capital city. The first F-4 Phantom, carrying a pilot and a radar intercept officer, also known as a RIO, took off and quickly established visual contact with the object. The pilot described the UAP as resembling a large star in brightness, but with an immense non-point source intensity. The object was noted to be switching colors rapidly, moving between bright red, green, blue, and amber. As the F-4 approached the object, the pilot noted the UAP began to move away, matching the F-4's speed, maintaining a steady altitude, and relative distance, a key indication of intelligent and controlled flight. The pilot initiated a closer approach, intending to get within firing range, or at least close enough for a positive visual identification. But as the jet closed the distance, the pilot and RIO were suddenly hit by an invisible force. At a range of approximately 25 nautical miles, or about 46 kilometers, the F-4 experienced a near-total failure of its electronic systems. The crucial systems that failed simultaneously were weapons systems. The entire radar fire control system went dark. Instrumentation, like critical flight instruments, flickered and failed. And communication, radio contact with the ground tower, was completely lost. The pilot, confronted by a non-responsive aircraft and facing an unknown object that was actively neutralizing his plane, immediately broke off the intercept and turned the F-4 back toward the airbase. This was a critical military decision based on survivability. The moment the F-4 began its retreat and increased distance from the UAP, the systems immediately began to restore themselves. All communication and instrumentation returned to normal operation. This pointed unequivocally to a powerful, localized electromagnetic interference known as an EMI event that was caused by the UAP, an effect that was either passively emitted or actively deployed to ward off the threat of the F-4. The first intercept ended in failure and profound alarm. The Air Force now knew they were dealing with something capable of nullifying their most advanced aircraft. And it should be noted that the aircraft at the time were being supplied by the United States, and the F-4 was, for a time, a super advanced aircraft. Now, despite the alarming report from the first jet, the UAP remained stationary, presenting a continued threat. Therefore, a second F-4 Phantom was scrambled, piloted by Lieutenant Parviz Jafari, a highly experienced pilot whose later testimony forms the backbone of the DIA report. Jafari's F-4 took off at around 1:40 a.m. local time. He established visual contact with the UAP, confirming the immense brightness and the cycling colors. The object had descended slightly, now estimated to be at an altitude of approximately 10,000 to 12,000 feet. Jafari successfully achieved a hard radar lock on the target. This is the moment the case shifted from visual testimony to irrefutable technical data. A radar lock requires the object to be a tangible, physical target reflecting radio waves, confirming it was not a weather balloon, a stellar object, or a temperature inversion. The radar confirmed the object's size as being roughly equivalent to a 707 tanker aircraft, and its speed was 0. It was stationary. Jafari began his approach, carefully tracking the object. As the distance closed, the object began to increase in speed, accelerating away from the fighter jet. The UAP was exhibiting instantaneous acceleration capabilities far beyond anything the F-4 could do, easily maintaining a gap between itself and the pursuit. As Jafari realized he could not simply catch the object, he made the military decision to attempt an engagement. He prepared to fire an AIM-9 missile, a heat-seeking air-to-air missile, at the UAP. In the cockpit, Jafari executed the launch sequence, but at the crucial moment, his weapon control panel went completely dark. The missile firing sequence failed entirely. Concurrently, his communications systems failed, severing his contact to the ground. The failure of the advanced AIM-9 missile system, a system designed to be highly resistant to simple electrical glitches, at the exact moment of attempted engagement, was undeniable evidence of a powerful defensive countermeasure. It suggested that the UAP was not just defensively equipped, but potentially aware of the pilot's intent to engage. The most chilling part of the second encounter occurred immediately after the pilot's weapons systems failed. The UAP exhibited what appeared to be an aggressive tactical response. Jafari observed a smaller, brilliant object detach itself from the primary UAP. This secondary object, described as a perfect sphere of light, instantly accelerated downward toward the F-4. The pilot, confronted by this highly aggressive and targeted approach, executed an extreme evasive maneuver, braking hard and descending rapidly to avoid collision. He estimated the secondary object was closing fast, seemingly pursuing him with undeniable intent. The pilot observed the spherical object slow its descent and change its trajectory, landing gently in a field near a power plant. The main UAP, having successfully defended itself and neutralized the threat, instantly accelerated away and vanished from the radar and visual range. The impact of the secondary object near the power plant was confirmed by ground witnesses who reported a loud sound and saw a brief flash of intense light. Jafari landed safely, but his Rio was so profoundly shaken by the events that he required medical hospitalization for psychological effects, a key detail verified in the DIA report. The following day, a search team was dispatched to the landing site near the power plant, but they found nothing but the ambient environment. However, local residents reported seeing the same strange cycling lights earlier that morning, providing a final piece of corroboration. The DIA's declassified report concluded that the incident was, quote, an outstanding report, unquote, due to the consistency and the numerous civilian and military eyewitnesses, and the unequivocal electronic warfare demonstrated by the UAP. The DIA report notes that the object exhibited capabilities that, quote, baffle the observers. No known aircraft or weapon system could account for the objects cited by the F-4 pilots, unquote. It ultimately concluded that the case met all criteria for a genuine high-level threat. The Tehran incident is not folklore. It is an officially documented, corroborated military confrontation where two advanced fighter jets were effectively disabled by an unknown aerial object exhibiting intelligence, extreme maneuverability, and a defensive countermeasure that neutralized the F-4 pilot's weapons. It remains, to this day, one of the strongest pillars of evidence for the existence of UAPs, UFOs, and USOs. Okay, that's going to do it for this episode of The Weekly Strange. If you enjoyed the show, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of my new uploads. And as always, if you really like the content I'm creating, please consider joining the channel as a member because you get access to some cool perks. And I will be back next week with brand new episodes of The Weekly Strange. In the meantime, have a fantastic weekend. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Good night.